Definitely a couple of things to note. One, our levels are hitting into the red, which we don't want. But as we mix this down, that problem will be solved. Also, some of the timings aren't exactly where we'd like them to be. First off, I don't know what I think about having this loop at the beginning, but I definitely don't want it that long. So I'm gonna shorten that down. And we're actually going to use this other tool here. This controls the envelope, because what the initial idea was, is to have a bit of a loop and fade out before or as the voice comes in. So actually, I'm going to zoom in. Oops, this tool. Zoom in on that area. Go back to the envelope tool. What I'm going to do is after, let's say, during this midway between this loop, I'm going to click once, which will create a node. Oh. Okay, it's doing it for, oh, there we go. Let's see, this might not work out. Okay, you know what? We're going to scratch this idea. We are going to cut you guys out. I'm going to copy. I'm just going to make another one of that. What we're going to do, grab about that much, and we're going to put a fade out. Boom. Just to see how that. The breeze is rising. Okay. Essentially, that's what I wanted to do. The envelope tool, it's a little fussy at times, but essentially, you create nodes and then you can change the envelope. I will admit it's not the most functional when working with loops, how we have them set up, but essentially you get the idea of what can happen there. So next I would like to shorten this over here. I'm going to shorten that again. Just going to cut that out. Create another little fade. The breeze is rising and blowing my papers over the table. I'm going to move this over, and we're just going to audition it and see where we'd like that voice to come in. I'd say about there. So I'm just going to move that over. Rustling in the trees sounds like tape hiss until it mixes with the next plane ahead. Recently, a young man described his experience working in proximity to jet engines. After overcoming fear of the sound, he began to find sounds to listen to, such as small. So, there. I'm going to fade this in. Sounds to listen to, such as small tinklings within reach. Why can't sounds be visible? With the feedback from ear to eye plus fatal oscillation. Do you remember the first sound you ever heard? What is the first sound you remember hearing? So, just hearing that, the last thing I'm going to do before mixing, I'm just going to move this so that the timing of where the music changes is lined up to after I'm finished the last line of dialogue. Okay, I'm going to zoom out. We definitely do not need all that, so I'm just going to kind of arbitrarily cut a good chunk of that out. Create a nice long fade. A lot of this would be a lot more thought out, but I just want to give you the kind of basics of what's going on. We're going to fade that out. And essentially, do the same to this other audio track. Fade that out. And essentially now we have a general overview of the basic project. And I'm thinking I am actually, at the moment, going to remove this loop. You get the idea of what to do with loops, but I'm going to get rid of that track. I do not feel it's working at the beginning there, so we're going to get rid of it. And we're going to play it. I'm going to pull up under view the mixing board, so now we see all the tracks.
Rustling in the trees sounds like tape hiss until it mixes with the next plane ahead.
So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring down a couple of these wind tracks just to give ourselves some more,
A young man
so we can hear the voice a
working
bit clearer.
to jet engines. After
And you know what?
fear of
What
the
we're going to
sound,
do here,
began to find sounds to listen to.
I'm just going to clean this up so we're all... Start this again just to give us a listen.
Such as small tinklings within the engine.
You notice it's... If you've selected an area, it likes to keep playing that area back, so you do have to kind of click in a different area, then hit back in the beginning. Command tilde lets me go back and forth between the windows, so I'm just going to pull this one up, the mixing window. Oops. Here I can mix the different levels.
The breeze is rising and blowing my papers about the table. The rustling in the trees sounds like...
I'm just going to re-listen to that, get a better level for those papers. So what I'm going to actually do is select an area.
Rising and blowing my papers about the table. The rustling in the trees sounds like tape hiss until it mixes. Rising and
Play that
blowing
again.
my papers about the table.
There we go.
The rustling in the trees sounds like tape hiss until it mixes. Rising and blowing my papers
Turned up the
table.
dialogue track a bit.
The rustling in the trees sounds like tape hiss until it mixes.
Okay, so now I'm going to just unclick that loop.
The rustling in the trees sounds like tape hiss until it mixes with the next plane overhead. Recently, a young man described his experience working in proximity to jet engines. After overcoming fear of the sound, he began to find sounds to listen to, such as small tinklings within the engine.
So the last thing I'm going to do is... I didn't like where that beginning came in,
Small tinklings within the engine.
so I'm going to cut that out. Cut that out. We need to move that back. to where we want it. Create another little fade. Actually, we want a bigger fade on this one. Fade in. Now what was the... So here I'm actually going to go to this tool because I'd like to have a bit more control. If you click and drag the node off the screen, it will remove it.
Why can't sounds be visible? Would the feedback from ear to eye cause fatal oscillation? Can you remember the first sound you ever heard? What is the first sound you remember hearing?
Bring that down a bit. And there we go. We have a creative idea, just showing some of the basic examples of the basic tools of how to put it all together. Just go back. What I'll do is, if you want to hear it all the way through, I'm just going to go back. I'll start it off, play it from the beginning, and just put up the references as it plays through. Oh, actually, one thing. Once we've listened to it, and this is this is how we want it, what we will do is we are going to export it. Export it. So here, exporting, and what this does is it bounces everything down to a stereo track. We have about 2, 4, 6, 7 different tracks playing here, so it's going to bounce it back to one track of a stereo pair. So, project 1, I'm just going to write audio on there under the video tutorial. Now here, we would like to save it. You need to go to other uncompressed files, to options, because we want this 24-bit. So, it's going to be an AIFF. The standards are Apple AIFF and the Microsoft Wave. Don't worry about the other ones unless you know what they are. Those two are fine, and then we want the signed 24-bit. And then we'll save that. Here is some metadata. We're not going to worry about that. Tracks will mix down to a stereo file. That's what we want. And there it is. So I'm just going to play it through. This tutorial is pretty much over. I'll just play it through, let it play till the end, and yeah, hope this has been helpful.
The breeze is rising and blowing my papers about the table. The rustling in the trees sounds like tape hiss until it mixes with the next plane overhead. Recently, a young man described his experience working in proximity to jet engines. After overcoming fear of the sound, he began to find sounds to listen to, such as small tinklings within the engine. Why can't sounds be visible? Would the feedback from ear to eye cause fatal oscillation? Can you remember the first sound you ever heard? What is the first sound you remember hearing?